Hello, I'm Dr. Cyril Orji, a Nigerian American. I live in the United States, and I suspect many of you recognize me from my earlier videos or from one of my books, First is Last, a book I wrote about my experiences during the Nigeria Civil War. So a pointer to the book is available on Amazon on the description page of this video. Similarly, my earlier videos, if you look at the description page of this video, you will see pointers to them. Moreover, I have a YouTube channel, which I call First is Last. I kind of just took the name of my book. So if you subscribe to that YouTube channel, once I release a video, you should get it speedily. My last video has two messages. I called for the release of Nnamdi Kanu, and I called for the restructuring of Nigeria to a federation of 6 zones based on the current 6 geopolitical zones in the country. You can call them zones, you can call them regions. I argued, among other things, that such bold actions will ensure a positive legacy for President Tinubu. Recently, Arise TV featured Pa Ayo Adebanjo to discuss the state of affairs in Nigeria. I suspect you know that Pa Adebanjo is the respected leader of the Yoruba group Afenifere. This man's candor struck me. He simply told you what he believed. Take it or leave it. Certain things I had in mind when I did some of my videos, and I was thinking about how best to say them. Pa Adebanjo said them fearlessly. So an issue that always comes up when we discuss Nigeria these days is the issue of restructuring the country. Many of you may not feel that some northern leaders and Yoruba elites kind of oppose structuring, but many of us, including Pa Adebanjo, believe that restructuring Nigeria is one sure way to address the insecurity challenges in the country. And one key aspect of this exercise is local policing. But the Northerners don't want to hear anything about state-controlled police. Listen to or hear what one Alhaji Shehu Gaban of the Social Democratic Party once said on TV. He flatly condemned state policing because he said it will give governors a lot of power, and the governors will use that to go after their political opponents. So Pa Adebanjo took this issue head-on in the Arise TV interview. Just take a listen to how he addressed this issue.
I say that is utter nonsense. And anytime anybody is preaching, I say utter nonsense. The question of state police is a constitutional provision of a federal system. That's number one. Number two, the question of the governor using it against is the federal government not using it against a party that does not belong to them, a government that does not belong to their party. We have seen instances of that. I don't want people to continue to insult us by saying, if anybody is abusing it, leave that to the state. That can't be a valid excuse. It's utter nonsense. When Buhari refused to attend to Benue, when the author went to him about the herdsmen, that he knows them, and that you help him, he said, go and make friends with your neighbors. He didn't allow, there was no arrest after killing about 700 people. Is that not prejudice? And all the incident of abduction and killing all over, which one of them have they done to say that that is the effectiveness of the federal government? So they stop insulting us. When we are asking for state police, every police, and have you heard of Inspector General of Police in America? Even in Great Britain, which has a uniform of government, we have cosmopolitan police. Police is localized. They know the terrain of the area. The people who make this decision, they have their own private agenda. And they should continue to insult us, and they use it against themselves. And when you are using it against the party that don't belong to you.
So this takes us to the issue of a parliamentary system of government. for Nigeria. Recently, some legislators, suggested that, and Pa Adebanjo kind of believes that it is a better way, to go about, that we should move to a parliamentary system. Pa Adebanjo also took a swipe at President Buhari and then discussed how he thinks that what Tinubu can do for his legacy. Take a listen.
He was one concentrated on Fulanizing Nigeria. But without changing this constitution, there's no way out. And he himself knows it. I hope he will revert back to how he became the governor. What was the slogan? What was the plan? What was the system that Alliance for Democracy used to put him to election? The campaign there was Sovereign National Conference, that we should revert back to parliamentary, to federal system, where every federated state is autonomous and is not subject to the federal government. All the functions are distributed.
So you can see that Pa Adebanjo believes that in a parliamentary system, the prime minister is sort of first among equals, and that kind of lends itself to a more egalitarian system, quite unlike the presidential system where Pa Adebanjo argues that the president acts like a dictator. And this is where I kind of see things a little bit different from him. So we need to distinguish what the presidential system is and how Nigeria has bastardized it. So I've lived in America for so long, and I know how the system works. So let's even not worry about what it takes to become the president of the United States. We don't have anything like that. We just come in with our bundle of cash and pay people off. But let's not worry about that. Let's kind of see how it is implemented. Many of you may have heard about a guy called Trump. When Donald Trump was the president of the United States, so he was the head of the executive, Nancy Pelosi, a Democrat, was the Speaker of the House and head of the legislature. So in America, it is president, vice, and the speaker. But in Nigeria, it is president, vice, and president of the Senate. America has this tradition that once a year, the president comes to address a combined session of Congress in what is called the State of the Union. So this year, there was a problem. Nancy Pelosi and Trump couldn't agree on a budget. So there was a government shutdown, and it was apparently the State of the Union. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, told the President of the United States, "You cannot enter and address a joint session of Congress. This is my house. You can stay in your executive suite and write your speech and send it to anybody. You are not coming here until we agree on a budget and open up the government." That is the Speaker of the House telling the President of the United States that he or she, this time that he couldn't enter and address a joint session of Congress. Folks, this is what we call separation of powers. President Trump, nothing he could do about it. He was forced to come back to the negotiating table, get a budget deal with Nancy Pelosi, before Nancy Pelosi allowed the President of the United States to address a joint session of Congress. Folks, this is separation of powers. This is the system Nigeria is pretending that we are copying. No, let's not deceive ourselves. We're not doing that. I'm not even sure today that Senate President Pa Ayo understands that he doesn't work for Bola Tinubu. But, the distinguished Senate leader, he understands what he understands. I'm not even going to get into that. But unfortunately, whatever Nigeria does, we tend to abuse it. So the issue is not that the president is a dictator in a presidential system. It is how we practice that system. Even in the parliamentary system, I will argue that it is not good for us. The British, where you have such a thing, it works for them. Think about it. If I had a twin sibling, I don't, but for purposes of argument, if we were in Great Britain, I can belong to a party and my twin sibling can belong to a different party. So it doesn't matter. So when a party goes into opposition or in power, it is an ideological party, because these parties, I can be a conservative and my twin sibling can be a liberal. So when anybody is in power or in opposition, it is an ideological party or members of that ideological parties. Think about Nigeria. Think about 1959. We had 3 parties. None of them has any ideology. The NCNC was the Igbo party in the east, led by Zik. Awolowo in the west, which is his action group, Yoruba party, and the Saduana of Sokoto in the north, which is Northern People's Congress. So what then happened after the 1959 election was that Zik and the Saduana went into a coalition, forcing Awolowo to the opposition. So unlike in Britain, where it would have been an ideological party that was in opposition, since Nigeria, our parties are simply ethnic based, it turned out that it was the Yoruba that were forced into opposition. That is why the parliamentary system, if practiced the way the British practice it, it's not going to work for us, because we don't have parties based on ideology. Once you push any quote-unquote party to opposition, it is an ethnic group that you have pushed to opposition. Even now that we have a so-called presidential system, Buhari and Tinubu have sort of this kind of coalition where they have pushed the minorities, other ethnic groups, into opposition. So that is really a very serious problem. So that's why I don't completely agree with Pa Adebanjo that the parliamentary system is what is good for Nigeria. That is why I have advocated this rotational model. It is a novel approach for Nigeria. We cannot just copy the Americans or copy the British. We've got to find what is good for us. So whether we practice the presidential system or the parliamentary system, it must be built on top of the rotational model concept, where every ethnic group has a chance and nobody is left behind. I'm glad Nigerians are coming to this rotational model idea. It was recently in the news that a bill on power rotation has passed through the first reading in the Senate. Great news, especially for those of us who have been advocating for the power sharing. But there is still a long journey ahead. I'm not an expert on Nigeria's legislative process. The little I understand tells me that we've got this presentation on first reading. There's going to be a second reading. We're going to go to a committee stage with possible public hearings and amendments. Then we go to a third reading and then passage, and the president, if he assents, will sign it. I also read somewhere that there may be, it may have to go to the states to ratify. I really don't quite understand, but be that as it may, I am happy that it is actually even being talked about. And that's where presidential leadership is critical. Another issue that I want to kind of quickly touch on that is coming up earlier today, I was listening to a YouTube channel, a foreign YouTube channel, where they were discussing the very serious likelihood of a coup in Nigeria. In fact, they did say that the presidential guard is on high alert. Now, I've touched on this coup before. It's terrible because if anybody can execute a coup in Nigeria today, it is only the Fulani, because all the military assets are up north. But will the Fulani stage a coup? I don't know. Seriously, I don't think so. But who am I? I'm just a Monday morning armchair quarterback. I don't think they will, but again, I'm hedging my bet. I don't know. But what I do know is that the Fulani are very smart. I don't see them today coming to shove Tinubu aside and taking a Fulani army and making him head of state. No, they will not do that. I don't think they will. They're too smart for that. So what I'm thinking is that they may go back to their 1993 playbook or something similar to that. When Babangida and Abacha staged the coup against Abiola, they didn't install a Fulani person immediately. What did they do? They went to Yoruba land and got Abiola's brothers. They got Shenikan. He became interim president in an election he did not contest. Gerald Dia was happy to be called chief of staff or something like that. One of the respected economists in Africa or even in the world, Professor Aluko, became economic advisor. So what happened? People said, oh, okay, there are adults in the room. Nobody wanted to protest again. And Abacha and Babangida bought time. And as they say, the rest is history. So I suspect, I don't know this for a fact, I suspect that if the Fulani generals actually decide to oust Bola Tinubu, they're going to go to a script that is similar to 1993, either something like that, or some permutations of that. They may find a Yoruba general and make him head of state. Or I don't know, but it will be a tragedy. I don't think that we need a coup. And so before I go, Pa Adebanjo asked President Tinubu to think seriously of his legacy. And in my previous video, I made a similar plea. Today, I look at the history of Nigeria as a continuum. I can identify 3 slots. You can identify more. The period before leading to independence, the Civil War, and then all this period we are now, we have Nigeria. Every time you say, oh, yesterday was better than today, those 3 places. Let's think about before the independence and just after independence. We have 4 great men, and I always mention them in no particular order. Chief Obafemi Awolowo, the Sardauna of Sokoto, Sir Ahmadu Bello, Dr. Zik, and Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa. Great men. So they occupy that first slot. Now we come to the Civil War. In my opinion, it was just a wasted period. There's nobody whose name is worth mentioning there. Many countries will use a civil war to really move forward. Look at Europe. After the Second World War, the Marshall Plan, that's what made Europe what it is today. Nigeria could have used all the challenges of the Civil War and moved forward. But I'm not going to discuss it. All I can say is, as far as I'm concerned, is a wasted period. So we now come now with all these challenges in the country. And that's why many of us are calling on President Tinubu to do something for his legacy. If he can release Nnamdi Kanu, if he can restructure Nigeria and put Nigeria on the path to stability, his name will have been etched in history as the 5th most important president in Nigeria up till date. So when we mention these 4 great men, Awo, Sardauna, Zik, Balewa, then it will be and Tinubu. Mr. President, the ball is in your court. This is your chance. Thank you.